Welcome back to Big Red Rant. Now, you don't need us to tell you that the Nebraska Cornhuskers are going through a transformational offseason with Matt Rhule going into his first year as the head coach. But it is worth mentioning that things are moving in a positive direction sooner than either of us on this channel thought was possible. First, hit the like button for us. It really helps the channel out. And tell us in the comments below, how do you feel things are going so far during this Rhule rebuild? So Gary, it's been about a month since we've dropped a video, and in that time, correct me if I'm wrong, you've turned positive?
Yeah, man. I mean, like you and I talking, everything is kind of predicated on taking Matt Rhule at his word. You and I've talked, and I've really voiced my concern with he sounds really like sales pitchy a lot of times when he's talking, so it's kind of hard to separate what's coach speak and what's not. But just assuming, you take him at his word, it just sounds like he's excited about a lot of the players that are carrying over from the last coaching staff. He didn't waste any time jumping in on the recruiting side of things, going into the portal, got an athletic quarterback to at least hold things over if none of the other guys step up until Casey can come back. It just, we'll get into like the recruiting, more recent recruiting this last weekend and things like that, but it's just everything seems to be moving at a lot quicker pace in a positive direction for the rebuild that needed to take place, be it culturally, be it everybody talk, Urban Meyer, when he talked about Nebraska, said the biggest problem was getting the guys in because nobody wanted to come to Nebraska. You and I have talked, a lot of fans have talked about, it's weird that Norman, Oklahoma can get studs, but Omaha, Nebraska can't, or Ohio State's cold, Michigan's cold, Penn State's cold, all those things. And not that he's necessarily done it yet. He's gotten a lot of speed guys. It seems like he kind of has a type that he's looking for in his first class. But from the sounds of it, nonstop since he's been here, there's been visitors every weekend of recruits, whether they're high-end recruits like last weekend when there's 20-some guys that are 5 and high 4 stars and things like that, all the way to guys that maybe don't have offers, but just really kind of getting Nebraska out there, pushing Nebraska more as a brand in a positive way to just start getting into these guys' heads or to be in front of them when they're looking at the Georgias and Alabamas and Ohio States and LSUs and things like that. I think it's twofold. I think it's a lot him and a lot Rhule. I think there's a lot of kids that want to go wherever Rhule goes, and with him looking seriously at Nebraska, that kind of opens the door where they're willing to at least check it out and see. And from the interviews and things like that, you saw a lot of guys really change their opinions on not just Nebraska as a state, but the city of Lincoln, as a college town and things like that. And the university itself, the facilities, that always kind of sells itself. But I kind of expected the down year. We kind of talked about that. I was at a Husker dinner where Ed Foley was talking, and he kind of echoed it. They don't see that bad year to start things off because Nebraska wasn't left. Temple was kind of a rebuild to get ready to go into a new conference and take a step up. Baylor had all but the death penalty because of their little scandal deal with Rhiles and everything, where everything was cleaned out and they had to start over from scratch essentially. And both of them, more than one, he's more than one said it, but then Foley was talking about it too. That's not the case here. There's a lot of good athletes. There's really good facilities, a really good fan base, blah, 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 all the stuff we've heard. And they don't see that starting from scratch scenario that they've had their previous 2 stops before they went to the NFL. And like I said, I was kind of looking at it as like, yeah, of course they're going to say that, but you see what he's doing. He's not wasting time. He's not waiting to show that it's a better program before he goes after these high name guys or these top tier guys. He's getting them in, getting them to take a look, not pressure on them. Just, come check it out, see what we have to offer. And you see that it's piqued some guys' interest, and it kind of puts, whether we get guys or not right now, I think a lot of that depends on what Rhule does. But it's starting to get Nebraska in the foreground in big named high stars. You know how we feel about the stars, but those type of guys aren't just brushing over Nebraska anymore to look at a lot of the other schools. And it's 100% him and the staff.
It just feels to me like Rhule has got a completely different recruiting style. I haven't seen anything like this from any Husker coach in the past. The sheer quantity of high quality players he's bringing in. Never seen that before. And I just can't imagine that it's not going to lead to good things at some point down the line.
If you're looking at previous regimes, previous years, whatever, and you're trying to be cautiously realistic of the guys you're going after, and you think if there's a Malachi Coleman, for example, a higher end recruit, but he's from Nebraska, we'll pitch him hard because we have a good chance of getting him. But that same caliber of player that's in California or Texas or Florida, well, they're not going to come here. They've got offers from all the big name schools, right? So Matt Rhule at least shooting his shot, at least getting that no stone unturned mindset of, no, we're going to go after these guys just as hard. They are a completely different, they do have more to offer. They have turned programs around. They have put guys in the NFL. They have a lot of guys in the NFL now. He's been to the NFL, maybe not super successful, but when you have a coach that has those types of connections and those types of insights where he can talk to guys about what it was like coaching Christian McCaffrey and different things like that, that resonates with a kid in a maybe not better in certain ways, but definitely different than everybody just trying to push. We're trying to get Nebraska back to where they were. We've got great facilities. Everybody has great facilities. We might have the top facilities when this new building's done. Maybe we're already there now, who knows, but give it 5 years and somebody else is going to be up there. You know what I mean? So him taking the approach that he's taking and not coming off like, we'll try to reach out to them and feel them out and see what they think. He's just like, no, man, come check it out. Come check it. Just throwing all these invites to at least get guys on campus to check it out is way more aggressive than I anticipated things being, and also way earlier. Maybe he's so aggressive or he's kind of seeing an opportunity or a window to try and kind of strike in while there's so much attention around Nebraska because of Rhule, and it seems to be serious about considering Nebraska, that it's making a lot of these other guys come visit and check things out sooner than they would. I felt that he would have to, over a couple years, build the program up to where we're for sure bowl eligible every year, but competing for Big Ten titles, a couple wins away from going over the next hump before he'd be able to really get interest from some of these guys. I really want to stress that it's the interest factor. It's not that, we're going to get a bunch of 5 stars and 4 stars in the 24 class or even the 25 class. It's just getting interest from guys, because that's going to have to happen before you start getting a bunch of commits. Obviously, Rhule could flip the whole thing on his head. He commits, 3 or 4 other top guys commit because they want to play with him. That's why I can't think of his name. The offensive tackle out of California is the top offensive tackle in the class. Him and Rhule have a relationship, and I guess that was a big part of the reason he came up. But the intrigue increases when guys get here. Everybody wants to go to the league, and when you're in Lincoln as a Husker, you're in the state of Nebraska as a Husker, you're looked at, we don't have pro teams, you know what I mean? You're looked at as like a superstar. People are making a big deal over you. When they made comments a lot, like, I announce all my visits on Twitter, but when I announced I was going to Nebraska, there was this many likes and this many retweets and this many comments and things like that. There's more than just what people would typically use for a place to go for recruiting wise. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just, the weather's great, or there's super hot models on beaches like, other places can sell, but like, there's other things that draw interest from, kids essentially that want to keep going through the ranks to get up to be at the NFL level.
I think it all goes back to Matt Rhule's own visit of Nebraska, his secret visit when he slid into town to check things out. I think he was blown away. Probably blown away by the facilities, blown away at all the amenities that Nebraska has to offer. It's top notch. It's NFL level. I think that opened his eyes to, holy crap, this is kind of like a secret, like, this isn't a bad step down from the pros as far as what I have to work with. I need to get these top recruits in here, because I didn't believe it until I saw it. They will believe it if I can just get them here. So I'm not scared to talk to the best recruits. If I can get them into Nebraska to see everything like I see it, I can sell these kids.
Yeah, for sure. And a big thing for him too was he came, I want to say it was the Minnesota game, but I can't remember for sure, but he came on a game day. And that's what kind of sucks, is there's no games. But I know a big part of getting guys there was, I shouldn't say it was, I can't speak on what the coaches were saying, but like the media people that have interviewed the guys that were here and the coaching staff and things like that, there's a big push to get them back for the spring game, because you and I've been to spring games in Lincoln, and it's not much different than a game day. You know what I mean? There's not, I don't know if there's any, but if there is, there aren't very many at all colleges across the entire country that do spring games like Nebraska does. You know what I mean? It's, people live and breathe Nebraska like no other, you know what I'm saying? So that would be huge to get a lot of them here, even just for that. I mean, that's the best you can do with no games going on, but that's where you really get that feel and that environment. You're able to kind of soak up that environment of what a little sample size of what you'd be playing in, that I think would push guys even further to really look seriously at committing to Nebraska, and especially, down the road. If you got guys now coming and checking things out, I don't think you just have this massive drop off next year because Rayola's not in the class. You know, it might drop a little bit. It probably won't drop if we get a couple of those guys, especially Rayola. But I feel like Matt Rhule is doing with Nebraska what Colorado's doing with Deion, if that makes sense. They're making Deion the focal point. Come play for Deion Sanders, where Rhule is really exposing all the positive that Nebraska has to offer and putting it out, like the social media aspect of things. When he's on, you know, sports shows and radio shows and things like that, he's always selling the program, you know, not him, not his coaching staff putting people in the pros or whatever else. That's part of it, but he's really putting a spotlight on all the positivity that comes with being a Nebraska football player and getting that out for everybody to see. And I think it's just going to continue to spread, you know, as the seasons go by.
I completely agree. And the other big thing for me is the culture building that he's doing. What is this about him assigning groups of players, not by position, but just at random? You said they're doing competitions?
Yeah, that's been going, I think, pretty much since the guys got on campus with them and everything. Is they're mixing, and I'm sure most people know about it by now, it's been talked about quite a bit, but the whole, for anybody who might not, it's, you take the whole team and then they grab like 5, 6, I don't know what the numbers of guys, but nobody's from the same position. So, you know, you're talking running backs with D linemen, with punters, with receivers, and, you know, safeties or something, but they get busted in these teams, and then everything's on a point system, whether it's workouts, going to other sporting events, doing charity work, extra workouts, blah, blah, blah. Whoever's done the most effort, you know, outwork the other ones. Two things is, it's building very good team chemistry. It's just common sense. You know what I mean? When in football, it's really easy to fall into, you know, I'm a corner, so I hang out with the DBs, or I'm a receiver, so I hang out with, you know, the skill guys, the receivers, and maybe the running backs or something. And the O-line and the D-line will have their little clicks. And one, he's tearing that down, but building in a lot faster manner than spending 5, 6 years maybe together, to where the whole team is going to be a whole team, right? And you're not just going to be boys with your position or the guys that you practice with every day. It spreads that out, builds a lot more chemistry and unity amongst your whole team. But everything is based on competition. The workouts, the going to lunches and breakfast, to, you know, going to the women's basketball games and swim meets and baseball games and all that type of stuff. And it's just the attention to detail that's coming out. You know, there's obviously going to be more that we're not hearing about, but the attention to detail that you're hearing that he's got everybody so dialed in on before they even started spring practice was just like, if it happened previously, I never heard about it. You know what I mean? And that's another thing. He seems to be pretty transparent with what they're doing and how they're going about doing it. Where I talked multiple games last year, especially when Frost was still there, the way we lost games, I'm like, there's something wrong culturally. You know, I used the Northwestern onside kick was the example I used with you, and you and I were arguing about it. Because I'm like, if you're so mentally weak that your coach makes a bad call in a game you're up 2 possessions on, that's a team mindset and cultural problem, right? Coaches are going to make mistakes, so are players. But if that one thing breaks your back to the point where they get 2 more, 3 more possessions on you because of one bad call, there's a deeper underlying problem. And I think he's not using that, but I think knowing what he knows, you know, being, you know, the coach he is, he understands that when you get all the details right, it's hard for little things to create the domino effect that we've gotten so used to seeing, even all the way back to the Riley era, where we were losing close games. You know, I mean, a bad punt to the wrong side of the field, a turnover at the end of a game, things like that. Like, you learn how to just navigate through those things and keep going, but you're also so sound in everything you're doing that it's going to carry over into football. You're going to be sound in football if you're already sound on when you go to breakfast and lunch and weight rooms, right? So I think that, and I think the chemistry he's trying to build with that team and make everything about we and us and not you guys or us or those guys. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like he's really starting over from scratch with the mindset that they're trying to drill into these guys as they take a football approach with that mindset, as opposed to, we talked about it with Frost, and you hear about it a lot when new coaches come in, like, well, you're gonna have to give it a few years for them to get their guys in there. He's looking at all those guys like they're his guys, right? So I think that helps kind of fast forward things a little bit as well, where you're not just trying to let the guys who've been here do things the way they've done it, maybe learn some verbiage and things like that. And then you bring this new batch of guys along for your next few recruiting classes until you can instill your culture. You're starting over from scratch, trying to reprogram everything so that everybody's on the same page sooner than later. You know, not to say that that's going to make everything magical when the season starts. They still got to go play games, but I mean, it just, what they're letting out, and again, be it sales pitches or not, you know, I don't know. I'm taking the guy for his word. I'm taking everything kind of as it's presented to me until I see otherwise when the games start. But as things get out, and he talks about things in press conferences and players and other coaches do, I'm super impressed. And I feel like, honestly, it's a season or two ahead of where I thought it would. The timeline, I feel, is a season or two ahead of when I thought it would, when things would start taking place that way.
Well, that is great news. I think we're all excited to hear that. Tell us what you think in the comments below. Are the Huskers on track, or are they going to be about a year away from anything positive? Hit that like button. We'll see you guys next time. Go Big Red.